For most officers, the night shift is defined by its data points. Years of responding to domestic disputes, property crimes, and traffic stops eventually settle into a predictable rhythm where every situation has a clear procedure and a likely outcome. This routine is the baseline for law enforcement survival. But every veteran carries the memory of specific calls that refused to follow that protocol, events that felt distinct from the usual chaos of patrol. We are examining 3 escalating categories of these incidents. These are moments where the quiet surface of suburban life was stripped away to reveal something far more volatile. When an officer steps into these environments, their standard training can fail to account for what they see. These cases don't just require a report, they force a confrontation with the irrational. The first category involves the failure of an officer's most reliable tools. A canine handler and his German Shepherd, Rex, were dispatched to clear a 2-story home after a suspect vanished during a foot pursuit nearby. Rex was a 9-year veteran of the force, trained to track human scent and narcotics with cold, mechanical precision. He wouldn't flinch in high-stress environments. This diagram illustrates their progress. After clearing the ground floor, they moved into the sealed upstairs hallway, finding no physical signs of the suspect. At the final bedroom, Rex stopped. He began growling, physically forcing his way backward, refusing to cross the threshold. The handler saw a tall, dark figure move into that bedroom just before he reached it. He called for backup and breached the room with his weapon drawn, only to find a space that was entirely empty. There were no crawl spaces, there were no exits, and the window remained locked. The handler was left with a direct contradiction: a physical sighting and a dog's violent defensive reaction, paired with a room that offered no physical way for a human to escape. The second category shifts toward a profound psychological distortion. A 911 call came in reporting a kidnapping, but the audio was digitally manipulated. The adult male was speaking in a high, childlike voice. Officers arrived at a home in a state of advanced decay. While the living room was buried under piles of trash, they discovered one bedroom that was kept in perfect clinical order, filled with life-size dolls dressed carefully in women's clothing. To clear the house, the officers had to descend into a basement that functioned like a fortress. They navigated a maze of stacked boxes and heavy furniture that funneled them toward one locked door in the corner. Inside that room, they found a missing man. The victim used the captor's phone to call 911, but captivity had altered him. He was forced to speak in that young, distorted tone for so long, he could no longer communicate naturally. This case highlights the reality of what can occur in total isolation. A person's identity can be systematically dismantled just a few feet below a suburban street. The final category is defined by a lack of closure. A neighbor reported a woman screaming from a nearby house in the middle of the night. A solo officer responded to find a quiet home with the front door standing open. The officer performed a sweep and found fresh blood smeared across the bathroom floor, leading to a small pool near the drain. The room was empty, but the blood was still wet. In the basement, the officer found a metal chair with cut zip ties attached to the arms, sitting in a much larger pool of blood. It was clear a restraint had been used, and recently. A noise from the corner alerted the officer to a suspect jumping through a smashed basement window. The officer gave chase through the rain-slid alleyways, but the figure was fast, and the darkness eventually obscured their path. He lost them. The homeowner's blood was identified at the scene, but he was never found. No woman was ever identified as being in the house. The suspect simply vanished, leaving the investigation at a permanent standstill. For the officer, this is the most difficult outcome. He walked into a violent scene in progress, but the person responsible walked away, leaving the case as an open, unresolved threat. After an investigation like this, the house eventually goes back on the market. The physical evidence is cleaned away, the records are filed, and the property returns to its original quiet state. Years later, that same patrol officer still passes that house. He sees a new family's children playing in the driveway, completely unaware of what he found in the basement, or the blood he tracked through the bathroom. This creates a specific psychological weight. Officers carry a spatial memory of these neighborhoods, knowing the exact coordinates of events that the rest of the public has forgotten or never knew existed. It's a realization that safety in these neighborhoods is often a matter of perception. Behind the uniform exterior of a suburban street, There are moments where the predictable rules of the world simply stop being followed.